Welcome to HoodooTube, your one-stop shop for reviews of fantasy, horror, and supernatural entertainment for the African diaspora. One of my all-time favorite horror movie franchises is Candyman. The original Candyman debuted in 1992, and I've got great memories of being terrified of this movie back in my youth in Toronto. Now that I'm back in Toronto after all these years, it's fitting that I'm finally getting to see the sequel. In the very first scene, I was reminded as to why this movie was so scary to me growing up. As a kid, I pride myself on not getting scared of other movies like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, but Candyman genuinely freaked me out, and I didn't realize as to why until now. Candyman is all about the trauma of black boys and men, so the victims and the monsters look like me. In the very beginning of this movie, a young black boy is being enticed to take candy from a creepy older black man with a hook for a hand, who appeared out of a hole in the wall in an isolated apartment building in Chicago. This scene highlights a young black boy's loss of innocence, and we are also reminded that Candyman, or Danger, is real and can even look like us or those closest to us. Keep in mind, folks, that what makes this story even creepier is that it takes place in the Cabrini Green Apartments, a very real neighborhood in the north side of Chicago. And for many years, especially in the 1990s, this neighborhood was considered a black ghetto. The city of Chicago and its black community has struggled with violence for years, and the Candyman and Cabrini Green folklore is an urban myth that has now become entrenched in that neighborhood story. In the first scenes, we're introduced to a young gay couple on their way to a friend gathering, and I'll admit, I thought they were going to get got within the first few minutes of the film. But luckily, Troy and Grady arrive safely to link up with Troy's sister Brianna and her boyfriend Tony, our lead in this film, played by TV star Yahya Abdul-Mateen. Mateen does a great job of stumbling down a convoluted path of discovery, sparked by a conversation the group of youngsters bring up at their gathering. Brianna, who is an art gallery director and is looking for a new art space, is warned by her brother, Troy, not to buy a location in the Cabrini Green area because though property is cheap, it's also haunted. The story of Candyman always changes depending on who's telling it, but Candyman became a catch-all phrase for the unexplained horrors of this Chicago neighborhood, Cabrini Green, and would terrify the black community members who grew up there. Troy breaks down one version of the Candyman folklore by telling what happened to a white reporter in the early 90s when she tried to discover the mystery of the Candyman and wound up dead, but would also become a neighborhood hero by saving a baby from a deadly fire in the process. Tony, who is an up-and-coming painter, is inspired by the Candyman story and decides to start implementing the Candyman lore into his own artwork. And of course, that's when things begin to take an ominous turn. When Tony heads to Cabrini Green to take pictures of the apartments and neighborhood, he meets Burke, played by gay Hollywood icon Colman Domingo, an older gentleman who's grown up in the neighborhood, and gives Tony even more background of the story of Candyman. Again, this latest story of how Candyman originated stems from the abuses of white racism and slavery in America, and is another reminder that this film and how Candyman was born and lives on is through the trauma of black men in America. Candyman was originally a haunting spirit who was wrongfully and viciously murdered by a mob of white men who sets out to avenge the injustices of black people of Chicago, but will also punish anyone, black or white, who doesn't believe in him and dares to say his name 5 times in a row. In horror movies, there's usually an ominous harbinger who breaks down the story for the protagonist, and usually the same harbinger is also connected to the evil itself, which is why they usually know so much about the killer. Not only does Anthony slowly begin to lose his mind and recollection of events ever since he began painting Cabrini Green and Candyman, the gruesome murder of his overly critical art dealer, and the art dealer's girlfriend, after the debut of Tony's art show, makes him and his girlfriend Brianna an overnight success. Now that Tony's artwork is being discussed in the media, and there is yet again violence attached to the story of the Cabrini Green apartments and Candyman, things become even more dark as Tony becomes obsessed with the history of his latest artistic muse. There are so many surprising twists and turns in this movie, and though this film is based on the original film that came decades before, Candyman 2021 does a fantastic job of extending the story of Candyman and the story's legacy.